Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad to see you all here. I'm Emmy Boyette. I'm the Director of Marketing here at the NC Chamber. And I just want to say first and foremost, I've been out on maternity leave for the past couple months and came back early August. And some of you were so sweet to actually reach out to me with some well wishes and just asking how I was doing. So that is much appreciated. And I think it's just really a testament to what we have going here. So thank you for your kindness. And I'm really excited to be back with you all. For those of you who are joining us for the first time today, just a little bit of background on how this came to be. So the NC Chamber runs typically twice annually a Women of Force in Business event. And when we're not in pandemic, we're meeting in person for this event. But for the past little while, that event has been virtual. But regardless, at this event, it came to light that this imposter syndrome is a huge issue that we grapple with every day in our professional lives. And it just really resonated with a lot of our attendees. So we decided to kind of rally the troops and bring directly to you the resources that can help you conquer that issue as time moves on, because we know it's not something you can just conquer immediately. It's something we have to work on actively every day. So that's how it came to be. And this is our third installment in our series. And we're just so happy that you're with us today. Really quickly, out of curiosity, if you could just take a second and put in 1 or 2 words in the chat box, a little description of how you've been feeling about your professional life and just the daily grind for like the past 6 weeks, I would love to see those words pop up. So go ahead and just in 1 or 2 words, share with us how you've been feeling about your professional life for the past 6 weeks or so. I'm watching these roll in, so thank you. Yeah, lots of different thoughts here, ranging the spectrum. Some are great. Some of you feel really, really good. I'm happy for you. I'm seeing a lot of tired, stressed, overwhelmed. And the reason I ask that is because I just came across an article today. McKinsey & Company released, I think 2 days ago, their annual Women in the Workplace study. And like I said, they do this annually. But the interesting thing about it is that one of the questions that they ask is how women are feeling about their professional lives and whether they're feeling burned out. Well, this year, 42% of women say that they consistently feel burned out at their jobs. Last year, it was about 30%. So a huge jump after almost 2 years of being in a pandemic. Also, one interesting thing to note is that when they did this study last year, 1 in 4 women were considering downshifting or leaving their careers entirely. Now, after another year has passed, that number has climbed up to 1 in 3. So if you're feeling that burnout, you're feeling stressed, you are not alone. We are with you. And that's why we're so, so grateful to have Jessica with us today. And I'm going to introduce her in just a second. But real quick, just to go over what today is going to look like, we're going to have Jessica go through her keynote talk. After that, we're going to be put into some breakout sessions where we can go over some questions that Jessica poses for us and cover any other issues that are top of mind for us, because this is a safe space for us. And then we'll come back together just to close the session with a few reminders. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Jessica. Jessica Lackey is a business coach and consultant who helps teams and leaders unlock their souls and transform their strategy to create more health, wealth, and worth in their lives, careers, and businesses. She combines master coaching with 15 years of experience in corporate America, with experience at McKinsey & Company, operations at Nike and Electrolux major appliances. Jessica is an ACC certified coach and an Awaken Your Life Master Coach trainer. She has an MBA from Harvard Business School, engineering degrees from Virginia Tech and Penn State, and is also a certified holistic nutritionist and PN1 certified with precision nutrition. Wow, talk about accomplished. Jessica and her husband Philip reside with their dog in Charlotte, North Carolina. So Jessica, thank you for being with us today. I'm going to turn the stage over to you.
So excited to be here today. Thank you all for the the stage and the opportunity to connect with this wonderful group of human beings. So just confirming everyone can see my screen.
We see it.
Yes. Perfect, thank you. So today we're going to talk about redefining success and worth at work and seeing how everyone's feeling scattered, stressed, overwhelmed, energized, excited. How can we harness our own internal definitions of success to reclaim success and worth at work in a way that feels really good and powerful and authentic to our internal definitions versus potentially those definitions that are outside of us that no longer serve us. So why are we here? Traditional definitions of worth and success at work may no longer be working for us because we then feel scattered, unutilized, overwhelmed. And also our context has significantly shifted, and we'll talk more about this, but the last 18 months really shone a light on what is important to us in our life. How do we want to live in the truest, authentic nature to ourselves? How can we stop feeling like imposters and maybe a system that doesn't honor what we need from us as human beings? So we're here today to walk away with a way to reclaim success and worth at work. How do we outline some new definitions of success, some action plans to move forward with that definition, and really inspired by the collective who have joined us in this discussion? Because there's one thing that I've learned in the past 18 months is that when we're divorced from other human beings, we feel that loss of connection so hard, and it just adds to the overwhelm we likely feel. So I'm super excited that the NC Chamber has cultivated a space and a community for this type of conversation in this type of community. So you'll see a couple of inspiring quotes that I hope inspire you today. Just a friendly reminder, nothing about you is a mistake. You are a gift and you are here for a reason, and you deserve to take up space in this world, and we need you here. There's a lot of, media and maybe our workplaces make us feel that we are not supposed to be who we are in the spaces. So this is a friendly reminder that you are where you need to be. We need you here. We need your voices. So what does traditional success mean to you? When I was writing about this topic, success has meant revenue growth, profit growth, having a title, responsibility, maybe having a salary. If you're a business, maybe hitting client and follower metrics, hitting those numbers that are signal growth, hitting your strategic goals, and also potentially being productive and responsive. I'm successful if I've got inbox zero. I'm successful if I respond to my managers and my leaders or my team in a reasonable time frame. So these are what I call traditional measures of success. And I am curious, I'd love everyone to chat in the chat box. What are other traditional success metrics in your work and life? Comfort, happy, strong performance review. Big house, promotion. I love these responses because some of these are about what I would call some more non-traditional success metrics, such as knowing my colleagues at a personal level, being happy, having comfort. Some of them are, I would say, the more traditional successes, which is checking off tasks, getting positive feedback, increased responsibility, and feeling like you're making a real contribution. So I love this is some of these different success metrics that you've incorporated into your lives. So we have these metrics of success: recognition, hitting goals, being seen as a SME. And a lot of times those come with outsized expectations of what that requires from us on a daily basis. Our context has definitely shifted. we've had societal upheaval, which makes kind of just being a human being more challenging during this time. We've got global conflict. We've been under a multiple year pandemic that has really stretched us in our capacities of what we're able to handle on a daily basis. We have extreme weather. We've had hurricanes and freezing and those fires in the West, which hasn't necessarily been as applicable to us in North Carolina, but that adds another level of complexity to what it means to feel like you're successful and worthy at work. And then for parents, it's been back to school. The kids have been in school, they've been out of school. You maybe homeschooled or virtual schooled for the last 18 months. And so the capacity that we had as human beings to kind of hit some of those more traditional metrics of success have really shifted. We may no longer have the capacity to perform the way we meant to perform in 2019. The world has shifted, the world has changed, and we have been under 18 months of arguably societal threat that drains us of our capacity. Just surviving and being a human in this space takes more effort and time than it did, 3 or 4 years ago. It's really important to talk about the context. And I would argue that the cost of some of these traditional metrics of success have become apparent. I love that a lot of you put in measures of success that relate to relationships and collaboration. But those traditional measures of success, kind of increased promotions, higher salaries, more responsibility, arguably having to meet a performance standard that maybe is unattainable, the cost of that has become apparent. And I think that's a little bit why we're having the imposter syndrome sessions. It's exhaustion and burnout and resentment, having to be constantly producing and constantly achieving and grinding can really lead to burnout, cynicism, resentment at your companies. It can lead to this conversation of perfectionism and anxiety, especially as you're maybe thinking about, attracting talent or shifting talent. This concept of I have to be 100% of all the things to all the people in order for me to get promoted, to get a different job, to move up in the world. That comes with so much anxiety. I'm standing up here and talking to you today as part of this imposter syndrome working series. And am I perfect enough to have this conversation and to lead this conversation? The cost of these high standards really leads us to start questioning our worth and our confidence. And it can really lead to transactional relationships. I think some of you, talked about wanting to feel like you're making a real contribution, wanting to know your coworkers in a deep way. But if you're on that hamster wheel of meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to work to email, when do you have the time, the space to have those connections with your audience and with your coworkers in your community? I'd love for someone to raise their hand and maybe share some of the costs they've felt in, the current environment with kind of the way they've been traditionally defining success for them.
And feel free to just unmute yourself and jump right in if you'd like to answer that question. Thank you.
Please, thank you.
Hey, this is Lisa Prather. I'm happy to share. I know I'm in sales, and so not being able to go to as many events has been definitely impactful. I've been to a couple and hosted a couple since COVID, and it is bizarre going back into that mode. And there's a lot of apprehension. I've talked to other people, and there was kind of the success of the reduction of COVID and now the uptick again. And so the events that I had canceled, have all been canceled. And so that's definitely been an impact, just not seeing other humans in person.
Yeah. I love that. That truly is, especially when you want to be in relationship with others and serve and make those connections, and you can't do that. Hitting those traditional success metrics becomes really challenging. Is there anyone else that would like to unmute and share their current experience with kind of the their definitions of success. Well, we will continue on to some questions. So I'd love to get additional thoughts during the breakout sessions. But what I've discovered that we're learning over the past 18 months is that we're learning that knowing ourselves is valuable, that rest and recovery are sacred as part of our work, and that we all have unique skills that spark us all differently and should be celebrated, and that we own our own worth. That maybe the way that success and worth was defined at work as an external representation doesn't serve us anymore, because we are meant to be in community. We are meant to be connecting with other human beings, that we are meant to live into what sparks us at our own jobs. And how do we bring that sense of self and our own definition of success to the work environment. So a little bit, I have this quote that I'd love to share with you called the worthiness trap. And this is the idea that tying or trapping your worth to anything or anyone or any time outside of yourself in this present moment. How often have you thought, I'll be successful when I get this next promotion. I'll be successful if I get this performance review. I'll be worthy of kind of my role when I feel a certain way, when this happens. Those are all part of the trap that makes us feel that we aren't worthy until something happens, versus really sitting with and embodying the fact that just by being present on this earth, you are worthy of being here, of taking up space, of having a voice and sharing that voice. And if you walk away with one thing today, it's that how can we reclaim for ourselves this idea that we as humans are worthy just for being here, and how can we reclaim our own definitions of worth and success based on how we feel in our human bodies? How do we feel as ourselves versus potentially what others have to say? How do we break this trap of worthiness? What would happen if we define success differently? What if we redefine success and worth in our lives and our careers by reclaiming our who, by reclaiming our why, reclaiming our how, and setting aside external societal expectations of success? Instead of saying, what does my boss think is going to be successful? What does success mean at this company? How do we redefine and say, what does success mean to me? What does success mean in my body, in my soul? And how do I show up every day knowing that I am worthy of being here, taking up space, and living in my most aligned who, why, and how? So a little bit about my story. I am one of those who left my job during the pandemic to go out on my own, although it was a multi-year journey to get there. When I was working in my last jobs, my values were really excellence, security, and growth. I didn't think my value were, how do I be the most excellent, be perfect at my job, and how do I be excellent at it? Versus, how am I brilliantly speaking my truth, saying my voice? I went from relying on a company who didn't really show me very much loyalty, but I depended on them for security, into the sense of I'm a resilient human being that has a deep capacity for learning and growth. I went from requiring outside approval, being on my phone 24 hours a day, waiting, trying to respond to emails, terrified when they'd email me at night, versus starting to notice how that response felt in my body and being like, this doesn't feel good. Like, I need to take a break. This is screwing up my brain. That knot in the middle of my stomach when I went in for a performance review, and I had no idea what was going to happen, versus knowing myself, I did a really good job this year, regardless of the politics around how I got rated and reviewed. I did good work. And noticing that, and noticing the difference that I felt in my stomach when I was waiting for that approval to come down from my boss. And then I would spend a lot of time doing what I was paid for in my zone of competence versus embracing my zone of genius and my work spark. I spent a lot of times keeping the trains running on the track versus saying, I want to learn new things, speak my truth, align with human beings that are doing the same thing. And that may mean I get less money. And what is that? How does that feel in my body? I use a lot of body work because a lot of traditional success requires kind of divorcing your head and the logic from your physical vessel. And so I bring a lot of that back into my work. So here are some exercises to discuss in the breakout sessions, and you'll also get them as take-home exercises. When we talk about reclaiming your who, regardless of the work that you're assigned and the work that others need from you, how do you start saying, I'm successful because I do the type of work that makes me come alive? So these are, some people love to be coaches. Some people love to be inventors and wanderers. Some people love to be advisors. Some people love to be nurturers. How do we step more into the type of work that makes you come alive? Because when you know that type of work and you can start crafting how you spend your time at work aligned with what feeds your soul, again, that internal definition of success is really going to start to show up, because you're going to be saying, how am I living in alignment with my deep purpose versus alignment with kind of what someone else is expecting from us? What brings you joy at work and at home? And for some, it's family time. For some, it's hobbies. For some, it's friends. How do you start, saying that I'm going to maybe step away from some of these other definitions of success and really step into noticing what brings you joy? One of the reasons I left my job is because I have a dog at home, and I never thought I would be a dog person, and I love my dog, and I wanted to stay home and, be around my dog and my husband. When is your work or your team's work the most powerful? I get that there's responsibilities that we all have at our jobs, but how do you know when your work or your team's work is the most powerful? And how do we say we're going to make time and space for us to do our best work? And that may mean not going to meetings on meetings on meetings on meetings that have no agenda, versus saying we're going to carve out time and space for the work that really lights our souls on fire and brings value to our companies. That may mean, again, not going to meetings that someone else put on the calendar. What are the core values you want to live in your life? For me, again, I had to move away from this sense of like my company was my security to I am my sense of security. I am resilient, and I can build a community of people that will support me and colleagues that have my back. And that was really important to me. And what is your zone of frustration? The work you're truly not meant to do. And is there ways to do less of that? Maybe that's someone on your team's like zone of genius. I reference that a lot. It's a book by Gay Hendricks. I'll include that in the resource list. But if we spend time, maybe your boss will say, yeah, I know you don't like doing your expense reports because they truly don't add value to your work. So we can, maybe go in on a shared assistant. Those are some of the ways that you can start to feel more into your internal definitions of success and worth at work when you're doing the things that most align with your soul. The second part of kind of these new definitions of success is really reclaiming your why. What do you truly aspire for in your life, in your whole life? Some people, when I ask this question, some individuals want to get to that next rung in the corporate ladder because at that level they'll be able to drive systemic change in their organizations that allow for more care, more generosity, more ease for the people that they work with. But others say, at that level, that's going to require more of me than I have to give. So I'm going to invest in my time and space in learning and in growth, or even crafting, working with your company to craft jobs that are really aligned with what you want to do. I've been lucky enough to craft some of those roles for myself at my company by saying, this is a need that deeply needs to be met. How can we meet this need? And if there's a good business case for it, a lot of companies will go for it. What injustices do you see in the world or in your company that inspire us to action? When you're really making a difference for you, for your life, for your company, regardless of whether or not it meets traditional definitions of success, you're going to feel that embodied response of, I am doing something important. I'm doing something that lifts my soul, that sets my body on fire, and I'm going to keep leaning in to do this. What happens to the world when you operate in your highest who? We look at our world and success metrics, but sometimes we forget that maybe we're having a ripple effect on our communities and our families by when we're in our highest who and why. Maybe it's not our personal success, but it's the success of our communities. It's the success of our teams. It's empowering others around us and really creating those ripple effects. And that's how real change gets made. And this question of what does enough look like in your working life? We're really, success in traditional ways can be seen as, searching for more. How do we say, when are we good enough? When do we have enough? And what does enough look like financially, responsibility-wise, growth-wise, work-wise? When do we say, I'm good and I'm gonna spend some time in other areas of my life? We don't talk enough about what enough looks like, because when you're in corporate and they ask for a career map, you're supposed to have a North Star job that's 2 to 3 titles higher than the job you maybe currently have. And what if you're like, I don't want to manage people. I want to keep being a subject matter expert and learning new ways to do the work I'm doing. And how do we start to normalize that there is a level of enoughness? That doesn't mean you don't have ambition. That doesn't mean you don't want to grow and learn and develop. It just means that maybe that next rung on the ladder isn't for you. And how do we start to normalize that for ourselves? Yeah, thank you, Emmy. I love that chat. And the last is reclaiming your how. When and how do you do your best work? I know that for a lot of companies who are having people come back into the office, maybe the how of the next phase of life is different than the how of the last 18 months, but at least knowing when and how you do your best work. Are you able to protect that time? Because really you want to do work that matters to you in a way that matters to you. So can you protect some additional time for knowing when you do your best work? What work truly drives value? There is a limited time in the workday in our lives. How do we identify the work that drives real value? Going to this meeting, processing these emails, maybe that's what other people need from you, but what do you need to do to drive real progress, to drive your internal definition of success? And I call that the 10K work. What boundaries do you need to set to reclaim space for your life? And how can you live more in choice about what deserves your time and focus? And again, some of these are going to be radical questions that say, you never want to let your manager down, but in order to really support your manager, is it about responding to the email as fast as possible? Or is it about setting real boundaries to do the most important work that's really going to change the game? That may not be popular for them, but it might feel completely authentic to you. So what if these were our definitions of success? And I pulled this from a book I'm reading called Proposals for a Feminist Business. Abundance consciousness, resourcefulness, mindfulness, gratitude, integrity, honesty, connecting with nature, empathy, care, asking questions, collaboration, ease, cyclical growth. So I ran this workshop a few weeks ago, and we traded some definitions of success. So one of the attendees was a coach, and she traded setting aside clients that weren't a good fit for having more space to dream, write, and grow. So again, kind of saying, I don't want to take money that's not aligned, because that is a burden on me that I want to have more space to dream and think. There was a leader at a healthcare company who, if she plays by the rules that have been given to her, she might be more successful in the corporate traditional sense. But she said, I want to be transparent. I want to acknowledge human dignity. And I want to be really open to telling the community what changes we're driving, even if it's not, something that the leadership necessarily wants to share. So again, she wanted to trade kind of the rules that will probably get her promoted for transparency and, making sure that the human dignity was respected in the change. Those are some trade-offs that I would want to make in my business. How can I trade efficiency and speed for collaboration and interdependence in relationships? Because if I live by these definitions of success, I'm going to feel worthy in my own skin and in my own body and in my own space here, versus necessarily having to live in concert with definitions of success from others. Here are some tips to boost your self-confidence. So whenever you're feeling like questioning your success, questioning your worth, again, a lot of body work is connecting to your body, connect to movement, connect to meditation, connect to breath work. How can we understand the somatic response in our bodies that say, this might be a definition of success that someone else has, yet it doesn't feel good for me. What is my body telling me? What is my spirit telling me? What is my emotions telling me that I need in this moment right now? And maybe it isn't to continue hustling, it's to slow down. There's a practice that will be in your assignments, or not assignments, your post-work or post-workshop materials, called a more than enough practice. How can we spend 1 to 2 minutes thinking about, where are we more than enough? How would we feel if we were more than enough? And what does enough look like for us? How do we feel that in our bodies? How do we reflect on our accomplishments with gratitude? Just because someone else didn't necessarily see it or acknowledge it doesn't mean that didn't happen. It wasn't important. So how do we reflect on those accomplishments with gratitude? And then loving kindness or meta meditation. There's some on Google, so I'll let you Google those. How do we have generosity and gratitude for things we're close to, but also people that challenge us? And again, holding on to any resentment or anger can really, mess with your own energy. So how do you extend kindness to those who maybe in your mind, don't deserve it, but in your heart, we all deserve it, as we're all humans doing the best we can. And then identifying your comfort zoning tactics. There's a difference between things that'll kind of like detach and numb from society versus things that make you feel really good. So how do we have more joy in our lives and say that just because we're humans, we exist? There are times where we need to tend to our fire and flame. What are those tactics that you use to tend to your energy? And even just tending to your energy can boost that confidence. So what I would love for you all to discuss in the breakout groups is, if you live by your internal definitions of success, yours, the ones where you feel worthy when you live up to them, what things in your life would you stop? What things in your life would you start? What things in your life that you're doing today would you elevate? And what's one way you would show up differently in the world if you reclaimed your own definition of success and broke the worthiness trap at work and in your life?
As people rejoin, I just want to say, I don't know if an hour would be enough for these conversations. Sometimes it's so needed to have these talks with each other, just to know that we're not alone in what we're going through, that it's a valid experience, and then to just share a lot of the strategies and the wisdom and the knowledge that we've all picked up in our own unique ways along the way. So I appreciate everyone who was in my group. That was a really great discussion, and I'm so sorry that Amy was cut off coming back, but great remarks, and I'm sure that everyone had a similar experience in their rooms. just briefly, Jessica, did you want to give any kind of closing remarks before I wrap it up for everyone?
I mean, I would just say that it's a journey, defining what success looks like for you, defining, especially in your careers, what are non-traditional ways to kind of grow your career. Is it stretch assignments? Is it learning new things? Is it being in causes or communities that you care about within your company? We are in the time of the Great Resignation and the Great Reshuffling. And it's so tempting to look for another, now some cultures are toxic, so I totally get that. But it's so tempting to look for something else to make us feel complete and whole, and especially in our careers. But until you know yourself and like what sparks you, what's enough for you, what's really where you grow and learn, it could be just finding a new environment that leads to the same results. So I really take everyone to take this time to say, truly, how do I want to grow in my career? How do I continue evolving in ways that maybe don't align to title or salary or money, because the responsibility, because you want to know that for yourself before you necessarily look for something else. I think a lot of that can be found in our current employment, assuming the culture is, supportive and warm and supportive of that. So that's my last closing argument.
Yeah. Thank you so much. A couple of reminders, because we're getting close to the end of our session together. As with all of our sessions, you will get a recap email sometime tomorrow that will contain this recording, some materials that Jessica has referenced in her presentation, as well as her slides. So you can go back and look at those questions that she posed as an exercise. And I also, this occurred to me during my discussion with our group. Feel free to shoot me an email. It's eboyette@nchamber.com. You've probably gotten one from me as a reminder about the event. If you have any sort of materials that you would like to share with the group, I mean, I think it's a great idea to crowdsource that sort of thing. In our group, a great idea for a book was brought up, and I'm going to go look into it. But you might have had some materials or resources that were brought up in your conversation. So if you want to make sure those are shared with the group, feel free to shoot me an email, and we can include that in the recap email as well for everyone. Also, just a shameless plug here, we do have our upcoming Women of Force in Business event in November. It will be held virtually and in person because we recognize some people aren't quite comfortable yet, but just to let you know, we will have the absolute highest safety protocols in place for the in-person attendees for that event. So we'll include some information about that in your recap email as well, and give you a little promo code that you can use as a member of this group if you're interested in attending either virtually or in person. And before you close out of your Zoom window today, you'll see a little prompt with a evaluation or a poll to rate today's session. And we would really appreciate you taking 1 second just to share your thoughts with us so we can improve our programming moving forward. But thank you to Jessica for being with us today. Thank all of you for being a part of the conversation. We'll get there. It's a work in progress for all of us. So be well, be safe, and we will see you all very soon. Thank you for your time today.